We've seen a lot of whinging in the last few days by Matt Gasco. Whinging about a few little things that maybe a few people did in things that are not advisable. We have to be careful of that, but we also have to not be distracted by that. We know that we're a non-violent social movement. We also know that we're a massive social movement, the largest social movement Australia's ever seen. Figures like 85%, 87%, 99%, you don't see those every day. We are the people. We are the people in this situation. And of course, when there's 87% of us, a few people get passionate and do things. Matt Gasco might try to make bad media out of that, but we don't shrink from that, and that's one of the reasons we're here today, to say we will stare you down, we will stare down your allegations, we will stare down your intimidation, and we will come back because we are the people. I want to say a few words about conflict. A lot of people are afraid of conflict. Often in the media and in the community, people want to avoid conflict and don't have the stomach for it. But I can tell you now, we are in conflict. We are in conflict in the Northern Rivers, and we did not ask for this conflict. We did not choose this conflict. We were living here, living our lives peacefully in our homes with our children and our families, running our farms and living our lives. But Matt Gasco, the gas industry, came up with a plan to invade our rural areas, to industrialise them, to destroy our water and destroy our land. You had no choice but to come here today. We have no choice but to fight. There is a conflict happening, and it's a conflict that's been caused by this industry and by the politicians that this industry controls. This conflict is inevitable because the government is ignoring the wishes. This conflict we see has been made inevitable because the government is ignoring the wishes of 85% of the population of the Northern Rivers and imposing this industry on us against our will. Now, we know from history and we know from all over the world that when governments and corporations collude to force their way over populations and over huge majorities of populations, of course there is conflict. But let's be clear about this. It is a conflict caused by those who are invading our region. It is a conflict caused by the government and their failure to listen to the people's will. What we are seeing is an historic failure, a historic political failure in New South Wales. What we are seeing is a failure of democracy before our very eyes. Now, democracy has several layers. One of them is voting in a ballot box for 3 minutes every 4 years. But that's not all democracy is. Democracy is about your rights to take part in the democratic process 365 days of the year. And non-violent protests like this are part of the proud tradition of democracy. In fact, non-violent protests are how we got democracy in the first place. And we will lose it unless we exercise our democratic rights each and every day when we are under invasion and when our rights and our opinions are being ignored by our governments. We have the right to engage in these protests, and we will continue.
Protected by community! Protected by community!
Lismore's mayor has said this is the greatest threat our community has faced since World War II. That is a very important and very true statement, and one we need to remember, because like World War II, we are under invasion, and we are probably under foreign invasion. Foreign invasion from Chinese gas companies, foreign invasion from multinational corporations, foreign invasions from the Sydney CEOs of Matt Gasco and other companies. Our back is to the wall. We've had polls. We've proved that 85% of people don't want this, and yet the government has ignored that. That is a failure of democracy in anybody's book.
That's right.
Yes.
Now, we need to continue with our non-violent resistance, and the greatest thing we need to be is persistent. We need to avoid the idea that any one rally, any one skirmish, any one battle, any one seismic operation or any one drill rig is the whole battle. We need to not get dispirited. Because we're being non-violent, we'll tend to be moved on. We do cooperate with the police as much as we can, and we understand their role as being the meat and the sandwich in this failure of democracy. I'm sure the police don't want to be out there on people's farms helping the gas companies force entry to those farms. They don't want to be put in that situation, but they have a particular role and they're subject to the law as well. Our democracy is failing and the laws are being created against communities and in favour of the gas companies, and the police are victims of that process as well. So it's good that we're respectful to the police and we do the best that we can to comply, but this is going to be a very long battle. It's going to involve non-violent resistance, and as we've already explained to the police, it's going to involve some intentional arrestable situations at times. But we can still do that carefully and peacefully, and we can still be proud of what we do. Metgasco might think they'll somehow get some knockout blow by smearing our names in the paper for a week, but we will be persistent. So what I urge you most is to be persistent. Don't fall into perception of failure. Don't think that just because another drill rig or another operation goes ahead despite our resistance, that we're somehow losing, because this is going to be a very long battle. It is a war of attrition. The governments and the industries have a lot to lose, and one of our strengths as a community is when they push our back to the wall, as they've already done, we've got nothing left to lose than our homes, our environment and our water. And when we've got nothing left to lose, we've got everything to fight for, and they have everything to lose. They have positions of political power, they have positions in bureaucracy, they have positions as CEOs of companies, they rely on investment in the stock market, and all of that can come falling down in a crumbling heap when the investors realise that this social movement is huge, it's persistent, and it's not going away. That's right. The government and the mining companies will make every effort at the beginning of this campaign to prove that our resistance is futile. They'll make every effort, they'll pour any amount of resources into going ahead regardless of our resistance to try to dispirit us. The most important thing we can do is be persistent as a social movement. I've studied social movements, and persistent social movements win. They always do. They didn't end slavery in a week, they didn't fight the Vietnam War in a week. We haven't held off, you know, there are no nuclear reactors in Australia producing energy because of persistent social movements. Persistent social movements in this area ended high conservation value logging in the 1990s. We can do it and we will, but it takes a lot of persistence and it takes us not feeling like we're failing. The other thing I want to talk about is where the front line of this battle lies. You're here today in Casino because the front line is here in Casino. We need to support our brothers and sisters in Casino because they're on the front line. They're the ones immediately threatened by this dirty and destructive industry. But like Celtic tribes avoiding invasion by Romans, if you let your neighbours get invaded and you wait for them to come to you, they will overwhelm you with their force. But if you go and support your neighbours and you hold them back at the first front line, they may never get to your gate and they may never get to your farm. So I say to the people of Gulmungar and Bentley particularly, be warned, it's heading your way. Norton's Gap is the confluence of the three shires. If this industry gets a foothold and continues in Casino, it will move into the neighbouring shires, it will move into other people's farms. You don't want to be fighting them on your own farms because it's going to be a long battle. The more we can hold them up at Casino, the better off the rest of the region will be. We are at least the 85%. That is a conservative estimate. We're 85% in the Casino region. We're 98% in a lot of the region north of Lismore. We proved ourselves to be 87% across the entire Lismore LGA. We are the largest, most comprehensive, most broad-based and mainstream social movement Australia's ever seen. We are the people. Our government is corrupt because our democracy is failing. If we are not listened to, it is a monumental political failure. We didn't choose this conflict and we don't necessarily choose non-violent direct action. We've been forced into this conflict and we've been forced into non-violent direct action. But non-violent direct action is the next layer of our democracy and the most important layer. And that is where we'll defend ourselves and that is where we will win.